The day she walked into my auto shop carrying a crumpled résumé and a pair of trembling hands, I had no idea she was about to change my life. She looked exhausted, as if she had spent months fighting battles nobody could see. I looked at the paper, then at her, and made the worst joke of my life. I told her, "I want a wife, not an employee." She forced a small smile, thanked me, and turned toward the door. What I didn't know was that she had heard those words before from people who had promised to help her, and every one of them had eventually walked away. Before we continue, if you believe everyone deserves a second chance, please like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, leave a comment, and subscribe to Bright Acts for more emotional stories about second chances, kindness, and unexpected love. My name is Daniel, and at 38, I owned a small auto repair shop on the edge of town. It wasn't glamorous. The walls were stained with years of oil and dust, the floor had more scratches than I could count, and the old metal sign outside rattled whenever the wind became strong. But the shop belonged to my father before me, and after he died, keeping it alive became more than a business. It became the last piece of him I had left. For 3 years, I had worked almost every day from sunrise until late at night. I fixed transmissions, replaced engines, changed tires, and listened to customers complain about prices they could barely afford. I had employees come and go, but eventually I stopped hiring people I couldn't trust. My younger brother had stolen money from the business and disappeared. My former business partner had cheated me, and my fiancée had left me 2 weeks before our wedding because she said she couldn't imagine spending her life with a man who loved an auto shop more than himself. After that, I stopped believing in promises. Then Emily walked in. She was about 30, with long brown hair that looked like it hadn't been brushed properly in days. She wore a simple blue dress under a worn cardigan, and she held a résumé so tightly that the edges had become wrinkled. She told me she had experience with bookkeeping, customer service, and basic vehicle maintenance. Her voice was quiet, but her eyes were determined. I looked at her résumé and asked why she wanted to work at my shop. She hesitated before admitting that she had been fired from her previous job after the company closed. She was behind on rent, had a 7-year-old daughter named Lily, and needed work immediately. There was something about the way she said it that made me uncomfortable, not because I doubted her, but because I recognized the fear in her face. Instead of offering her a job, I made that stupid joke. I said I needed a wife, not an employee. For a second, Emily simply stared at me. Then she gave a tiny laugh that sounded more like pain than amusement. She thanked me for my time and walked out. I watched her cross the parking lot through the office window. I should have let her go, but something bothered me. The next morning, I found an envelope under the shop's front door. Inside was her résumé and a short handwritten note saying she understood if I couldn't hire her, but if I ever needed someone honest, she would work harder than anyone. I kept that note in my drawer. 2 days later, one of my mechanics failed to show up, and a customer arrived furious because his truck was still unfinished. I was already overwhelmed when Emily suddenly appeared at the shop. She wasn't asking for another chance. She had come to pick up a small box she had accidentally left behind. When she saw the chaos, she quietly put the box down and started helping. She answered the ringing phone, organized invoices, spoke politely to angry customers, and somehow discovered that one of my supplier bills had been entered twice. I stared at the corrected invoice. She had saved me nearly $400. I offered her the job that afternoon. Emily accepted, but she made one thing clear. She didn't want charity. She wanted to earn every dollar. Within weeks, the shop changed. Emily wasn't a mechanic, but she understood people. She remembered customers' names, called them when their cars were ready, and created a simple payment system for families who couldn't afford unexpected repairs. She even convinced me to stop treating every customer like someone trying to cheat me. And then there was Lily. She sometimes waited at the shop after school because Emily couldn't afford childcare. Lily would sit in the corner with homework while I worked. At first, I barely spoke to her. But one afternoon, she asked me if my father had taught me how to fix cars. I told her yes. She looked at the old photograph of my father hanging above my desk and said, "He looks like someone who would be proud of you." I hadn't heard those words in years. That night, I sat alone in my office and cried. Slowly, Emily and I became friends. We talked after closing time, sometimes about ordinary things, sometimes about the wounds we carried. She told me her ex-husband had left when Lily was 4 and rarely contacted them. She had spent years believing that needing help made her weak. I told her about my father, my broken engagement, and the brother who betrayed me. Neither of us tried to fix the other. We simply listened. Then came the hardest day. A customer accused Emily of stealing cash from the register. The amount was almost $2,000, and the security camera near the office had stopped recording that afternoon. I saw fear flash across Emily's face. She didn't defend herself loudly. She simply said she hadn't taken anything. My old instincts screamed at me to protect my business. But then I remembered her note. If I ever needed someone honest, I trusted her. We checked the invoices, bank records, and delivery logs. Hours later, we discovered the truth. One of my longtime suppliers had been using fake credits and manipulating payments. Emily had actually been the person who noticed the first signs of the fraud. She hadn't stolen a penny. She had saved my business again. That evening, I apologized to her. She accepted, but she also told me something I would never forget. She said trust wasn't something you demanded from people. It was something you chose to give before you had proof. I realized she was right. Months passed. The shop became more successful than it had ever been. Emily eventually became my business manager, and I finally began taking Sundays off. Lily became part of our strange little family without either of us planning it. One rainy evening, after closing the shop, I found Emily standing beside my father's old workbench. She was holding the same crumpled résumé she had brought months earlier. She smiled and told me she almost threw it away after my terrible joke. I laughed and admitted that I had regretted it the moment she walked out. Then I told her the truth. I had spent years thinking I needed someone who would fit perfectly into the life I had built. But Emily had taught me something completely different. Sometimes the right person doesn't fit into your life. Sometimes they help you build a better one. I didn't ask her to become my wife because I was lonely. I asked because I had finally learned what partnership meant. Emily said yes. A year later, we stood in the same auto shop where we had first met. There were flowers hanging from the old tools, customers crowded around the garage doors, and Lily stood proudly beside us holding a photograph of my father. I looked around and realized that the shop no longer felt like a graveyard of memories. It felt alive. Emily squeezed my hand, and Lily smiled between us. The woman who had once walked into my shop asking for a job had become the person who taught me that love isn't about finding someone perfect. It's about finding someone who stays when life gets difficult, someone who sees your broken pieces and doesn't run away. And sometimes, the greatest second chance doesn't arrive looking like love. Sometimes, it arrives holding a résumé. If this story touched your heart, please support Bright Acts by liking the video, sharing it with someone who believes in second chances, and subscribing. Your support helps these stories reach people who may need a little hope today. And before you leave, comment second chances if you believe one unexpected person can completely change the direction of a life. Because Emily came looking for a job, I thought I needed a wife. What I actually needed was someone who could remind me how to live again.